Welcome back to how to write a best-selling novel with AI. And as you can see, I'm looking at a different screen here. And you read the title of this video correctly. Chapters 5 through 19. I wrote them last night, partially as an experiment, but I decided to record this video because I wanted to show you how I wrote so many chapters so fast using accessing the AI in a different way. So when you use ChatGPT, or you use something like Claude, you're using the commercial side of it. You pay your 20 bucks a month and then you get access and you can use it the way we've been using it the entire course. But what if I told you there's another way you can use AI, you can access it? And there is. It's through connecting on the more of the developer side of ChatGPT or with Claude, or there's plenty of other ones you can use this with. But that's essentially what's going on. You use something called the API to connect to one application to another, allowing it to become an AI powered app. That's what I've done here, and that's how I was able to write so many chapters so quickly last night. I took maybe about 2.5 hours, and I wrote all of those chapters. I wrote nearly 15 chapters. Pretty impressive. And the chapters are good too. And I'll show you why this is faster, but then I'll show you some of the trade-offs that it comes with as well. So let's go in there to my alien invasion writer. So if you don't know where I'm at, I'm in what's called OpenAI Playground. And so if you put ChatGPT, don't search for ChatGPT, search for OpenAI Playground. And you'll see it come up like this. I'm just going to show you. I'm already in here, but and so you'll see this, and maybe this is a little intimidating to you. Don't worry about it. I'm going to tell you exactly where you need to go. You want to go to Assistance, and here you want to go to Create. And once you hit Create, it's going to take you to this screen. So what's happening in this screen is first we're setting up an assistant, and what we're essentially doing is we are training an instance of ChatGPT, similar that you would do in a chat, right? When you say, I want you to help me write a 70,000 word fiction novel. You're training ChatGPT to do that task. Here we can do the same thing, but we have a lot more control over what we tell the model to do and specific outputs. And you'll see how this is much faster in the long run. So I'm not going to enter something new because I already have mine, but I just wanted to show you how you create this. Now there's a lot of options here, but there's only a few that we really need to consider. There's only 3 we really need to concern ourselves with, what you should be concerned with. So let me go back to my alien invasion fiction novel writer, which I made last night. And so of course you need a name for your app. And then here's the instructions. These should look familiar. Instructions. You are a highly experienced fiction novelist who writes with style. Length of each chapter. And I should update this too. Oh, well, okay. So these are just the instructions that I've been feeding Claude and ChatGPT when I start my prompts. And it's the same thing. It's just my writing style guide. There's nothing new here. These are the base instructions that it's going to follow. Then the next option is the model. I'm using the latest model, and you should just use the latest model unless there's other models. And here in ChatGPT, you only have access to the GPT, the OpenAI models. Now, this next option is super important. This file search. Default, it's going to be off. You will definitely want to turn it on because this is the advantage of using these assistants is that unlike Claude and using ChatGPT the way we've been using it, you can upload files, but they won't store the files in the same way. They will eventually forget the files and you have to reprompt like I showed you in the last video where we summarized everything and then we had to reprompt it. this is the power move for these assistants, because that's a thing of the past. You don't need to reprompt. You can just put the files in, and let me show you the files I have in this one. So the files I have are the outline of the story. I have a summary of the chapters that I've done so far in the first act. I have the draft, the actual draft of the story. So I think it's at like 14,000 words. I have that in there. And then I have my document, the Obsidian document, where I've got everything in here. It's all right here, where I have all the characters, where I have all that brainstorming we did in the very first few videos. So with all this context done, I don't need to reprompt, and you can see how this is going to be faster. This is the equivalent of, instead of just verbally telling the AI assistant, hey, I want you to help me write a novel, and then every time they forget and you have to explain it again over and over, you're just giving them the equivalent of the folder and saying, these are your instructions, hold this with you and keep following these instructions. That's so powerful, and it makes the process a lot faster. Everything else you don't really need to worry about in the context of writing. We don't need code interpreter because we're not working with code. Temperature, this is another parameter that's interesting and basically increases or decreases the randomness that the model uses. And I mean, it can be pretty fucking random. I experimented and turned it up to 2 last night, and the language, it was using all sorts of different languages. It wasn't even following the documents that I gave it. So you can play around with it if you want, but I suggest leaving it where the default is. Don't worry about top P. Everything else is just done. And then once you fill this out, you go to Playground, and now we're on the back side of ChatGPT, to where I can say, write I'm probably not going to use this because I'm not looking at let me just look at the outline and see. The outline is chapter 20. Okay, this isn't what I want to happen next. The story's definitely taken a different turn since I've done so many chapters, and I'll go over that in a later video. But right, chapter 20. And let's see what it does. So it runs retrieval. Okay, so this is a pretty generic chapter. It's not one that I'm actually going to use, but as you can see, it, based on where it's at in the story, and I think I gave it all the way up to 19. So it wrote the next chapter, and it's not bad. And you can see how the writing isn't bad because it's following these instructions over here, which are the instructions I would have fed it anyway. So had I done more of the prep work to make sure that this was an actual chapter that I wanted, this would be good enough for the draft. And that's essentially how I did chapters 5 through 19. I just kept going with the story, and of course I had to modify the outline as I was going along. But this is how you use this powerful feature. Now, it does come with some trade-offs. The trade-off is that it's not free. It costs money to use this, which can be a dangerous thing, right? But it's not a lot of money. So I told you I did chapters 5 through 19, and as usual, the way it goes with AI, not every output is gold. Some outputs are better than others. This is what the usage looks like after I don't know how many prompts that I did, but I'm at $2.14. So this is another thing. It does cost, but it doesn't cost a lot. It's 0.00007 or something per token. Remember, it goes by tokens. I think I mentioned this briefly in one of the earlier videos. Tokens are essentially the currency that these large language models use. It's not per word, it's not per sentence or anything like that. So that's how it's racking up this bill. But as you can see, after 2.5 hours of fairly heavy use, getting nearly 15 chapters done, I'm at $2.14. It's not bad, but it's not free either. And if you're already paying for the ChatGPT subscription, which is $20 a month, and you're already paying for Claude, which is another $20 a month, this stuff can get pricey pretty fast, and that's one of the downsides of using AI. But think about the time that this is saving you. If you have, and this is why it's so important to have a solid outline and to know where your story is going, because just like everything I've been saying with AI, it can do, this is an 80% solution, but if your story lacks direction, if you're not sure about your characters or what's happening or what you want to say with your story, then you're going to get decent writing, but your story is going to wander and it's not going to be cohesive. Keep that in mind if you decide to go down this path and use this. Now what I want to do is I want to go through some of the chapters that I did, and I want to actually start fleshing it out with you. So let's go to our draft, because the story has just taken an interesting direction. I think I ended at chapter 6. That was the last. That's right. It was the sex scene, and yeah, we got a pretty good. Got a pretty good sex scene. And so here's chapter 6. Took a breath. Something weird's going on at the school. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, James is like, what are you doing? Do they? Because he was acting strange. Zena, you can't go around accusing people. I'm not accusing. I'm observing. My voice rose in pitch. Something's not right. I can feel it. Even if that's true, it's not our job to investigate. James's tone was maddeningly calm. We have to trust the system. The system? I scoffed. The same system doing God knows what on that base? The same system you can't even talk to me about because of your precious clearance? James's jaw clenched. That's not fair. You know I don't have a choice in that. James entered the bedroom. Okay, so that's very jarring transition there. I think I accidentally overwrote the transition, which I didn't really like anyway. Oh, it was in the other chat. It was this. Well, maybe I don't have a choice either. I come up, maybe you have this in your writing too. I come up with against parts in my writing where I'm like, I don't really like what I wrote, or in this case, what I did with the AI, but I can't think of anything. Like, it would take significant effort, and then I'm starting to get into editing too much. Like, I can do some on the spot stuff, but I don't want to dive too deep into editing especially with a first draft like this. So I just basically like, okay, it's good enough. And when I come back to it later, then maybe with a bigger picture, I'll see more clearly what I need to do. Well, maybe I don't have a choice either. I grab my bag and stalk toward the bedroom. There's no reason to grab her bag. She's already home. I stood. Well, she's already standing. I stalked toward the. Let's talk toward the bedroom. Let's make that 1 sentence. James, a few minutes later. Door crept open, and James entered. I say James joined me. Concerned exasperation lined his face. Xena, I know you're worried, but we can handle this rationally. I shot him a withering look. It's withered. My muscles still coiled with tension. Rationally, kids are getting sick, and you just want me to sit here and do nothing? He sat down beside me, the mattress dipping under his weight. It's another AI thing that it kind of overuses. It does this, Jaren thing where it's just like walking to the car, dipping its weight, but it does that a lot. And I guess I think it thinks that's good writing, and sometimes it's fine. I think it just overuses it. It's better to keep. I like to keep the sentences more action oriented, so just using just plain old past tense, and in certain cases present tense is better. But once you start like modifying the verbs and doing stuff like that, when you do it too much, it's writing, so you can write however you want. But once you start doing it too much, then you got to change things up. I didn't say that, but charging him without a plan isn't going to help anyone. I turned away, frustration simmering under my eyes. See, there it goes right there. I turned away. Frustration rolled under my skin. James sighed, then his voice took on a playful lilt. Hey, what did a cheek say to the other cheek? Despite myself, I glanced at him. What? We don't need that. See you crack. See? This was a ChatGPT joke. See you crack. Okay. His jokes are meant to be cheesy and lame, so I guess we can leave that in. I stared at him, unamused. James's smile faltered. Then he puffed out his cheeks, looking like a chipmunk storing nuts for winter. Okay, so I don't know if you remember this detail, but remember we said, going back to our character sheets, we said Xena's sexual turn on is, and this was a random one. This is where sometimes these things come in. Her sexual turn on is cheeks. And so to get this part of the scene, I left it open to interpretation to the AI and said, James shows his cheeks. And this is the scene. Of course, it chose the more innocent cheeks, which makes sense. It wouldn't make sense for him to just like pull down his pants or something and show his ass. I don't know. Maybe, you do you. This is the way it is. But so that's what it chose. So at the sight of them, I forgot the site. At the sight of them. There we go, that's better. At the sight of them, a seed of desire sprouted deep in my belly. I tried to hold on to my anger, but the sight of his rounded cheeks, the earnest light in his eyes, damn it. Damn it. He knew exactly what he was doing. James leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. I'm on your side, Cena. Always. We'll figure this out together, okay? His hands found my hips, his touch igniting sparks beneath my skin. I turned to face him, my resolve crumbling. Our lips met, the kiss deep and hungry. James's fingers slid under the hem of my shirt, skimming over sensitive flesh. We lost ourselves in each other, the world falling away until there was nothing but tangled limbs, ragged breaths, and shuddering release. And eventually, a shuddering release. Afterwards, I lay nestled against James's chest. His heartbeat steady beneath steady beneath my ear. Yet even as my body hummed with satisfaction, my mind couldn't fully quiet. The image of those 6 students, of Kane's furtive behavior, kept circling like hungry sharks. James had managed James managed to temporarily ease my turmoil, but this battle was far from over. Come morning, I would begin my investigation, alone if I had to. One way or another, I would uncover the truth. This is okay. We don't need that. Okay, so we have a nice. I'd consider this a light sex scene. You know, it's we get some details, and I touched on this a little bit in the last video, but I feel like when it comes to sexual material in fiction writing, it's less is more. And I know that maybe that sounds cliche, but it is true because, and I think that's good for action, any type of action that involves a lot of movement in general in fiction. You don't want to, I was describing this the other day to somebody, you don't want to go beat for beat, blow for blow. You can, and there's instances where you might want to do that. Once again, I'd say it depends on the character, but normally you don't want to. You want the reader, don't forget about the reader, because their brain is filling in the gaps of the story, and that's why fiction works. This is why people read fiction, because it's basically a collaborative between effort between your writing and the reader's perception of what you wrote, and they're going to fill in those details. And so by the time we get to this part, we know it's a husband and wife situation. We know they're both a little bit well, she's more upset than him. He's doesn't seem to be very upset, but yeah, basically don't do the blow for blow thing, and the scene will be more powerful. In this case, I felt like this is good. These 2 paragraphs of describing, just we get a little bit of her physical sensation, we get a little bit of her emotional, how it's affecting her emotionally. That's perfect. That's all we need, and the reader can fill in the rest. That's all I have time for in this video. I hope that helped you set up your assistant and get writing more. I'm going to be working on more chapters, and so the plan going forward is to just go through these chapters through the draft, and I may do some of that. I may not record all of that because some of it can be exciting, but not really. So I will come back and I'll basically pick certain chapters to go through in this course. And then we'll get into the the refinement phase, which can be a drag. I'm not gonna lie, at least for me. But I'll show you how to use AI to make it go a lot faster and make it a lot more efficient for the final story. I'll see you in the next video.